Hello everybody, welcome to the channel, Out of Ammo, Out of Time. I'm Krabby Terror 8. Thanks for watching. And so here we are in part 9 of the Investigator Games with Ashcan Pete, who is stepping up to the plate to have a go at the gathering today. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Investigator Games, I'll just quickly describe what it is and why it's called that. It's like the Hunger Games. So each investigator takes their starter deck and steps up to the plate and goes through the gathering, and we see how they go. Depending on how they go, they end up in a league table, which you can see at the end of this video, from the top best performing investigator right down to the worst performing investigator in terms of experience points, or how long it takes them to complete it, or whether they die or resign, all those sorts of things. So at the end of, I guess, the whole Night of the Zealot campaign, once we've done the 3 scenarios, the Gathering, Midnight Masks, and the Devourer Below, we'll be able to see who is the winning investigator, who gets riches and accolades, you know, beyond belief, and who is at the bottom of the table, goes away and licks their wounds and, you know, tries again another time. So that's the Investigator Games in a nutshell. Just also a spoiler warning. I know there was a spoiler warning just before we started here, but if you haven't played Arkham Horror the card game before, or you haven't played The Gathering before, I would strongly urge that you do that first. I'm assuming you know this scenario. And so if you haven't played Arkham Horror the card game before, or you're very new to it, really do that first and then come back. Okay, so as I said, we're here with Ashcan Pete, who's really a two-hander, really. There's Ashcan and his loyal dog Duke, which makes them a unique investigator from that perspective. I spoke to Ashcan, as he likes to be called, in the green room. I always have a chat to the investigators in the green room before they start. He's a very nice individual, Ashcan. He's quiet spoken, which is a real contrast to last week when we had when we nearly met serious injury or death at the hands of Zoe and ended up running down the street. This was much more laid back. In fact, Ashcan asked me if he could stay in the green room and just sleep there a few nights, which I said was perfectly fine. Jim won't be in the green room for another week or so, so that's perfectly fine. Yeah, and he entertained myself and Duke to a medley of Glenn Campbell songs, which was which was very pleasant. In fact, there's a particular Glenn Campbell song which he played called "Gentle on My Mind." I'll leave a link in the notes to it, which kind of captures Ashcan Pete in a nutshell. In fact, Ashcan said that it was written as an ode to him. So, and I can certainly see that. Fantastic song. And so yes, I've left a link to that in the show notes. "Gentle on My Mind" by Glenn Campbell. Ashcan is a man of few words, so it was hard to gauge whether he feels confident or not about this particular scenario. He doesn't seem particularly fazed by what others have done. The gold standard to get to the top of the table now is either finishing in less than 9 turns, or it's getting more than 4 victory points. So either of those ending outcomes will get you to the top of the table. He seemed not particularly interested in any of that. He's a man of few words. Duke was bounding around though and barking, so Duke seems particularly excited to be involved in this, wagging his tail and all those sorts of things. So that's Ashcan. And just on that, like I said, there are a unique pair, because you start with Duke actually out on the deck as your companion. He's an ally creature, but interestingly, he doesn't have the little ally icon at the bottom of the card, which means you can also have another ally as well. So that's the other benefit, is you can actually have 2 allies with Ashcan. And Duke really is a fantastic in terms of fighting and also in terms of investigating, which is pretty good because Ashcan's fighting and investigating is pretty crap, to say the least. He's got good willpower and reasonable agility, but his strength and his intellect are not strong at all. So without Duke, he wouldn't be that great. And indeed, you can see here that Duke does exhaust when you use him, but you can discard a card and you can ready him again so Duke, you can use Duke twice. So here we have the starter deck for Ashcan Pete. Couple of things. The random weakness that I drew was Revelation, Paranoia, discard all your resources, which is not the end of the world for a survivor class. I nearly called it scavenging class. I sometimes forget, but I guess survivor class is a scavenging class. That's you know, survivor classes tend to survive on relatively low amounts of resource, so it's not the end of the world. The other thing I do like about Ashcan's deck, because sometimes you will have known if you've seen some of my other videos, I complain quite a lot about the starter decks. They're not particularly good, they're not particularly balanced. I think Ashcan's is one of the better starter decks. It's got a good mix here, and it's particularly good because it has the fire axe, which I'm a big fan of. It actually has 2 fire axes, so definitely if we can get the fire axe out and have Duke, I think we'll be in a good place to bash the ghoul priest around the head. And it's really quite nice because you can spend a resource to up your fight skill. With Ashcan, you're going to need a couple of those resources to bring it up to something respectable. But then if you use your resources, you get +1 damage. There's a bit of overkill with the weapons though, because there's also the baseball bat, which I'm not so much of a fan of, because even though it gives you +2 and +1 damage, it can break, and takes up 2 hand slots, so it's not as good as the fire axe in my opinion. And there are 2 copies of knife as well, so we've got lots of weapons, and indeed we've got lots of ways to investigate and get clues as well, not only with Duke, but we've got deduction and magnifying glass in here as well. So we've got lots of solutions to do things. I mean, the only thing is that I would be rocking two copies of Lucky at the bare minimum if I was running this deck, because it's such a good card, but that's okay. So yes, we can't forget everyone's favorite ally, survivor ally, Peter Silvestri, big man on campus, +1 agility, heals horror. Yes, he's the gift that keeps on giving. So great ally card as well. Got to do. I had to just put in a shout out for Big Pete. So yeah, so we're going to shuffle and close that deck. We're here in turn 1 on the investigation phase, ready to roll. I put out the study with the other locations. Now normally if you were playing the game in real life you wouldn't do that. You would have the study and then obviously it would go, but just so you don't have to watch me put out locations, I've just got them all there, so we're ready to roll. Ghoul Priest, he's still very happy with what's been happening recently, without giving away any spoilers on recent playthroughs, but he's feeling a bit proud of himself. Oh, we're gonna bash someone else today. Lita, yeah, she's happy that the investigation around collusion between her and Wendy has gone away, and that she's been exonerated on that. Is she confident that Ashcan and Duke are going to bring her on board? Not really. I mean, it is possible that they might, but we'll just have to see how things go. So she's not feeling that confident about it. Very few people come and see me in the parlour. I'm getting a bit tired. Thank you, Lita. So before we draw our hand here on turn 1 of the investigation phase, let's just read the agenda in the act deck. What's going on? It's late at night and you're holed up in your study. Well, that's, I mean, that doesn't really make sense for Ashcan Pete, because that's suggesting he owns a house, which is really unlikely. So I think it's probably more the case that he's squatting, or he's in a derelict building or something. But anyway, so you're holed up in your study researching the bloody disappearances that have been taking place in the region. A few hours into your research, you hear the sound of strange chanting coming from your parlour down the hall. At the same time, you hear dirt churning, as if something were digging beneath the floor. And trapped. As you leap to investigate, the door to your study vanishes before your eyes, leaving behind only solid wall. You're trapped inside your study until you can find another way out. So there we go. We're all ready to roll. All we need to do now, which is my favourite part of the Investigator Games, is to draw our hand of 5 and see what we get. So let's go ahead and do that. And what do we get? We get Survival Instinct. Yeah, like this card. It's a good card, a great card that you could use with the Ghoul Priest to get into the parlour. Down the track. Baseball bat, so there we go, we've got a weapon. Even though it's not our most favourite weapon, it's a weapon. Bait and switch, which yeah, I'm not sure that's such a great card in this particular scenario, but anyway, it's there. The knife, so another weapon. And finally, racked by nightmares, well, we can't have that. And finally, perception, which is a great card to get if we want to either use it in the cellar or we want to use it to try and parley with Lita Chandler. So there we go. We don't need, at this stage, I'm probably thinking I'm going to keep the baseball bat and survival instinct, but I'm going to throw in the other 3 because I want to try and get things like Peter Silvestri and other things. Silvestri? I'm not sure which of those 2 it is, but anyway. Okay, so let's draw another 3. So we get deduction, fantastic. We get cunning distraction, and we get dig deep. Okay. Yes. So again, not a great draw. I mean, we've got the baseball bat, so that's something. Dig deep's not great because we've already got pretty high willpower and pretty high evasion. It costs 2 to bring out, and then we would have to then start spending. So yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, that's what our starting hand is. Not the world's best starting hand, but anyway, I'll just shuffle up the deck. There we go. So here we are in turn 1 of the Investigator Games. Pete waves, Duke bounds around barking, Crag goes wild as we kick off. So here we go. We've got our 3 actions here. We're in the study, 2 clues. Thing I like about the gathering is that it's pretty single-minded what you've got to do at the beginning, which is just essentially get the clues and get out of the study. But before we do that, let's do a couple of things. So first of all, we need to make sure we've got a weapon on hand in case we draw a some kind of ghoul or something, rats. So we pay 2 and we bring out the baseball bat. There's another good reason, which I didn't mention before, why you need to get an asset out on the table early, because Duke is an asset, and if you don't bring out an asset and then you get Crypt Chill as your first draw, that could be very nasty because you could lose Duke straight off the bat. You might as well just restart, quite frankly. So yeah, we need something on the table for that. I'm thinking at the moment I might actually also bring out Dig Deep, and the reason for that is that then if I do bring out Crypt Chill, Dig Deep is an easy discard. So that was my first action. For my second action, I'm going to spend 2, and I'm going to bring out Dig Deep, even though I'm not a big fan of that card. It's just it's an asset which I'm not too fussed about losing. I think I should have got yeah, there should be 2 resources. Not sure what happened there. Okay, so there we go. I brought out 2 resources. Okay, so for our final action. We will investigate. So here in the study. Now we're going to use Duke for that. So we're going to exhaust Duke. Oh, he's really tired. He's just laid down. I'm just going to move these across so Duke has room to exhaust. Now I'm thinking we could actually accelerate this because that gives us a skill of 4. Now I could keep this for the cellar, but actually I'm thinking I might use it now because hopefully we'll get something like a flashlight or some other. There's quite a lot of ways to investigate, so I'm going to use that now. So that's going to give us a 5 versus a 2, and we'll get both clues straight off the bat, which would be a fantastic way to start. So let's do that. So that's a 4 with Duke, 5 investigation, which means 5 versus 2, we need a -3 or better. Chaos Bag says, wow, Elder Sign. Wow, what a way to start. So that is absolutely successful. Elder Sign, not only is it +2, but Duke readies again. So he's back. Not that we are going to use him again anyway this turn. That goes to the discard pile, and we get both clues. Yeah, because if we successfully investigate, you discover an additional clue. There we go. Now, that was our third turn. So we so quite an action-packed first phase. We brought out the baseball bat. We brought out Dig Deep. We used deduction, and we got the 2 clues with the help of Duke in the study. Now, I could flip the study and move straight to the hallway, but one of the people who commented on my earlier videos gave me this little tip or trick which I hadn't even thought of, which is you're better staying in the study and waiting until your next turn. The reason being, if you get a ghoul minion or a hungry ghoul or one of those, or rats or whatever it is, you can insta-kill them because you can start and throw in the clues. It doesn't really matter. It's not losing any time, but it means you're not wasting time then fighting something in the hallway. You're ready to roll in the hallway straight away. So that was a great little tip or trick for this particular scenario. So there we go. Let's move forward. Fantastic start. Crowd's excited. Ashcan seems to be handling things well. We've got some assets on the board. We're crypt shield proof. We're all ready to go. So let's see. Let's move into the enemy phase, or the enema phase, as I like to call it. There are no enemies or indeed enemas to speak of. So we can move straight into the upkeep phase, and here we go. So this is a really, really good card for the seller. Like, you couldn't ask for a better card because the seller has a high shroud. You're likely to fail. If you fail by 2 or less, you get 2 clues. Bam. So that's a great card. So we're set for the seller. The main thing we've got to think about now is setting ourselves up for the ghoul priest, because that's going to be the challenge. Because he can be nasty. He's got retaliate. We want to make sure we're in a place where ideally we've got lots of resources and maybe a fire axe, so we can whack him and get him down quickly. But anyway, we've got some work to do before we get to that time. So that's our upkeep phase. 2 resources. We've got 3 cards. 3 cards on the table. Things are looking good. So we move into the inaugural favourite phase everybody loves and adores and can't wait for, and that is the Mythos Phase. Dun, 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 dun. So there we go. There's the first doom on the Mythos Phase. 3-2 before it flips, and we go to our first encounter. And let's see what we get from the encounter deck. And it is Frozen in Fear. There we go. So we put that into our thread area. That basically just means, you know, the first time we move, fight, or evade, it costs an additional action. That's all. So we just lose an action, essentially. Not sure why he's frozen in fear. He's just sitting in his study. He's got the clues. He's got Duke. I'm not sure why he's suddenly frozen in fear. But anyway, that's the card that we have. And that's it. We can move forward into our phase. We'll put 3 actions on Ashcan. And yes, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to spend the 2 clues, which flips the trapped agenda. So you notice that the edges of your newly purchased rug are tattered and mud-stained. Give me a break. Newly purchased rug. Can you imagine Ashcan in IKEA or something? Sort of, you know, the music in the background. Dee, 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 dee. And he's, you know, there with Duke and they're, you know, shopping for furniture. I don't think so. Anyway, finding this odd, you shift the furniture aside and pull back the rug. To your surprise, you see a door leading out of your study. You slowly turn the knob and the door swings open, revealing your hallway below. You jump through the doorway, landing on your feet on the soft dirt with Duke. The door to the study slams shut above you. The smell of burning wood fills the narrow hall, intermingled with the scent of rot and decay. There we go. So basically we put the hallway, cellar, attic and parlour into play. We've already set that up. We discard each enemy in the study, which there aren't any, and we put the investigator in the hallway and remove the study from the game. Okay, so there we are. So I'll just do this and then we'll read the next thing. So whee! Into the hallway, flip the hallway. There we go. It's a one shroud location with no clues. Study goes. Let's just move the study over here. Bye bye study. Okay. And the new Act 2A is The Barrier. A glowing barrier blocks the path to your parlour. As you move towards it, intense heat forces you to back away. Picking up a handful of dirt, you toss it at the barrier and watch in horror as the dirt incinerates. I'm not sure why incinerating dirt is so horrifying, but anyway, there you go. Perhaps there's something in the cellar or attic that can help. And when the round ends, we spend the clues. So it's at the end of the round. We spend the clues. Out comes the ghoul priest. Okay, so we've got a bit of time before that happens. So here we are in the hallway. Now we have 2 choices. We could go down to the cellar. And indeed, I think we could do that first, actually. We usually go up to the attic instead of down to the cellar. It actually doesn't matter in this case. But you know, to hell with it, we're going to do what everybody else does, and we're going to go up to the attic first. That seems to be the way most of these things happen. So we'll go la-di-da-di-da up to the attic, and that takes 2 actions because of Frozen in Fear. We flip that. Yeah, we put 2 clues on it. Okay, and the other thing is we take a horror. So we take a horror for, let's put the horror on Duke. There we go. So there we go. We've got 1 turn left, so we might as well investigate the attic. So we'll exhaust Duke again. So we exhaust Duke. Let's move these over a little bit. We exhaust Duke. So here's a 4. We don't need to do anything else. It's just straight up 4 versus 1. So that's a -3 or better. Chaos Bag says -4. Yes. Well, there we go. There we go. Duke can't find that very simple clue. Can't find it. Never mind. Not the end of the world. So there we go. Basically, all we did this turn was get out of the study, get up to the attic. That's okay. That gets us up to the attic. But there's still 2 clues there because Duke didn't manage to successfully investigate. But I'm sure we'll get those clues next time. -4. Man. There we go. Okay, let's move to the enemy phase. There are no enemies or enemies to speak of, so we can move directly into the upkeep phase, and we get working a hunch. Discover a clue at your, well, there you go. Fast play during your turn, discover a clue at your location. The fact that we've already got this means we can probably, well, we can use this, or maybe we should be keeping this because if we want to get Leader Chandler on board, which would be nice. It would be nice to have Duke and Leader. We'd be an unstoppable force then. Then having those, because we are a 2, I think you have to parley a 4, so you'd want at least 6. So maybe I'll keep this. If we find that the Chaos Bag is awful, and we've got 1 clue and we've only got one action left, then I might use it for that. But otherwise, I'm going to probably keep it because we might think about doing some kind of cunning distraction getting Leader on board and then bashing the Ghoul Priest that way. Or sorry, Survival Instinct. So we could Survival Instinct the Ghoul Priest, perhaps. Yes, anyway, see how we go. So, that is the Upkeep Phase, and we move into the second Mythos Phase. Dun, 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 dun. Yep, there's the second Doom. We're one away from that flipping, or it could flip this time if we get Ancient Evils. And let's see, indeed, speaking of Ancient Evils, let's see what the Chaos Bag... I just remembered, I forgot to do something. Let's get rid of Frozen in Fear. Ah, that's better. Okay. Yes. Let's see what the encounter deck has for us. Well, there you go. Ancient Evils. It's like the encounter deck is reading my mind. So that immediately adds an extra Doom, which makes this advance. So we'll take those off. We'll flip this. Your house continues to change before your very eyes. The walls have decayed and the ground in many rooms has turned to dirt. It's almost as if you have been transported somewhere else entirely, although every now and again you recognize elements of your former home which actually you don't own. The lead investigator must either discard a card at random from their hand, nope, or take 2 horror. We're going to do the horror. The horror. The horror. Okay. So let's take the 2 horror. Let's put another horror on Duke. Sorry, Duke. And let's put a horror on ourselves. So there we go. We've still got... Well, no, we've only got 4 now. So Peter Silvestri would be a nice addition at the moment. But hopefully, apart from the Ghoul Priest, there's not... Horror shouldn't be an issue, hopefully. That should be it in terms of horror. Let's read this. The rise of the ghouls. The floor beneath you is giving way, and you see a vast network of tunnels twisting into the darkness below. Shapes and silhouettes of strange creatures move swiftly through the tunnels, trying to find a way up. You probably don't want to be here when they do. There we go. Okay, so we're definitely... That's 7. We've got 7 turns now. I'm not concerned about time. We usually got plenty of time. It's more being ready for the Ghoul Priest when the time comes. It's turn 3, so as I said, we've got to get going and do some investigating. So there we go. That flipped because we drew the encounter card. I was just about to draw another encounter card, but in this case it flipped because of an encounter card. That was close. So let's move on to the investigation phase. We put 3 actions on Ashcan. And, well, here we are. I guess we'll just go ahead and exhaust Duke. And we will investigate 1 versus 4, straight up, -3 or better. Chaos Bag says Elder Sign. It's like one extreme to the other. Well, that's okay, because we can unexhaust Duke again. That was our first action. We get a clue, which means we can use Duke again. That's brilliant. So yeah, ready Duke. We'll exhaust Duke again. And again, Chaos Bag 1 versus 4, -3 or better. Chaos Bag says -1. So we get both clues, and that means we put a damage on. I put a damage on the attic because we have the first victory. Crag goes wild. Duke bounds around. Ashcan smiles slightly and just waves laconically to everybody. So there you go. There's 2 of our actions. We've gotten all the clues. We didn't even need to use working on a hunch. Fantastic. So I think the obvious thing to do with our 3rd action is to move back to the hallway so we can get down to the cellar next go. So there we go. So predictable, fantastic round. We used Duke because we got an Elder Sign to get both of the clues in the attic, and then we moved back down to the hallway. So that was a very efficient round, and we've got our first victory point. So we're on our way. Okay, let's move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies. It's been an enemy-free scenario so far. It would be nice to get the Hungry Ghoul or the Icy Ghoul, because then we could be on the path to 5 victory points, which no one has done yet in the Investigator Games. So there we go, there's the enemy phase, then we'll move into the upkeep phase, and we get Pete. Pete's arrived. Pete's arrived, all-American, big man on campus. Here we go. Fantastic, because we need a horror soak. Perhaps, so that's brilliant. Yeah, really, really good. And it's good to have a an ally on board, because it gives us +1 agility. So we've got lots of agility options. So that's great. And we have a bit of resource as well to spend, so that's all good. Things are going well so far. But as you know, in Arkham Horror, the card game, and as we've seen in other investigator games, things can be going very well, and then they can just go pear-shaped very, very quickly. So, just have to see how we go. Okay, let's move into the Mythos phase. So that's the first doom of Rise of the Ghouls. I've got lots of time there. Let's see what the encounter deck has for us, what delights we will encounter. Well, Obscuring Fog, thank goodness. This happened in one of the other scenarios with the Investigator Games, that the poor old Investigator ended up with an Obscuring Fog in the cellar, which basically meant, which was made life very difficult. However, the Obscuring Fog in the hallway is pretty much next to useless, to be honest, but we'll put it there for now. I'll put it there at the, I think you can send it to the back, somewhere here. Send to back. Yeah, so it's there, but, you know, yeah, the whole way. It doesn't matter. So there you go. That's a bit of a free pass from the encounter deck. Although, having said that, again, the Flesh Eater or the Icy Ghoul would be a very nice card to get, because that would change the dynamics if we could kill it, but it's not going to happen. Okay, so we're moving into turn 4 of... did that click over? No. There we are, investigation phase. Let's put 3 actions on Ashcan. So there we go, he's got his 3 actions. And here we are. So what do we do here? What do we do? What do we do? Well, I think the first thing is that we go down to the cellar. Dunk, dunk, dunk. Go down to the cellar. Flip the cellar. 4 shroud. Put 2 clues on it. And as we're going down to the cellar, as we go down to the cellar, we trip and we fall down those last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. We tumble down them. Ouch, and we take a horror. It's a bit slippy with the ice. No, we don't take a horror, we take a damage. There we go, so we take a damage. Ouch. There we go. So we're in the cellar. Now, this is probably where we will now investigate again, and because we've got this, we actually want to fail it by 2 or less. Because that would be brilliant. Knowing my luck, I'll exhaust Duke and we'll actually succeed. But anyway, we've got that there. It just costs 2. So let's see how we go. So for our second action, we exhaust Duke. He exhausts. It's a 4 versus a 4. What does the Chaos Bag say? Chaos Bag says Skull. I can't believe it. We actually succeeded. We didn't want to, but we did. So we succeeded. Yeah. So there we go. We've got all the clues now that we need to actually forward the agenda, but we don't really want to do that. Now I could investigate again, which would be a 2 versus a 4, which is -2 right from the start. So I'm not going to do that. I could discard a card and then ready Duke. No, that's no good. Well, I could. It's a free action, isn't it? Yeah. I'm not going to do that either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay 3. And I'm going to bring out Pete. There we go. We've got Pete on board now. So, yes. So now we've got Pete. So that gives us an agility of 4. We can boost that with Dig Deep, which is great. So that was our 3rd turn. So yes, in that turn we moved down from the hallway to the cellar, took a damage. We then successfully investigated with Duke, and actually this is not bad, because now we've got like 2 lots of intellect. We could very much get Leader Chandler on board, or at least try, because 2, 4, 6, we would have 6 versus 4, which is a really good chance of bringing her on board and then really taking it to the Ghoul Priest. It would be good. At the moment we've only got the baseball bat as a weapon, and that worries me because the baseball bat could break, and that wouldn't be ideal, because then we would be in a bit more trouble if that were the case. But anyway, yeah, so all we've got now to do in the cellar is just get one more clue, and we're good to go. If we're lucky, the Icy Ghoul might turn up, and then we'll be able to bash that around the head and get an extra victory point, which would be brilliant. But anyway, I don't hold out much hope for that. So let's move forward to the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of, so we will move forward to the upkeep phase, where we get bait and switch, which is another intellect pip. So I'm feeling, and it's also I wouldn't really use the actual evasion piece, but it's actually, the pips could be quite handy. There we go. All right, let's move forward into the Mythos phase to Doom on Rise of the Ghouls. Let's see what the encounter deck throws up for us. The encounter deck has rats. There we go. Well, we did get an enemy, but we just got pissy rats, so that's easy to manage. I'm sure we can baseball bat the rats quite easily. So there we go. Speaking of baseballing the rats, it's the investigation phase. We get put through 3 actions on trash can. So first things first, let's beat the rats. Now we've got a couple of choices here. We could just do straight up 1 versus 2. We could use Duke. No. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the baseball bat on the rats. So we get +2 for this attack. So that gives us an attack of 4 on the rats versus 1. So let's just hope we don't draw a skull or an elder symbol. So 4 versus 1, -3 or better. Chaos bag says 0. There we go. Rats dead. Baseballed them to death. Okay, so that was our first action. For our second action, we are going to exhaust Duke, and we are going to... I just realized we probably could have used Duke in the hallway. We could have exhausted Duke in the hallway, and you can then move to... I didn't think about this before. I have done this before, and I didn't think about it, because with Duke you can investigate with a base skill of 4, and you can move to a connecting location before investigating with this effect. So what I could have done is I could have moved to the hallway, exhausted Duke, and immediately moved to the cellar. But, you know, that's... well, it's neither here nor there now. I didn't do that. So, but I'm just saying I could have done that. I think obviously in a much bigger scenario with a lot more places like Midnight Masks, that's much more critical benefit for Ashcan. So, yeah, so our second action will be to investigate, and so it's a 4 versus a 4, 4v4. So let's see how we go with the Chaos Bag. If we fail it, we can, then we get, what do we get? We get an auto fail, so that's not going to happen. Doesn't matter what we throw at it. So that didn't work. Oh dear. So we've got 1 action left. I really do want to get this clue. Do we throw out? Am I going to use this automatically evade? It's got a wildcard pip. I don't really want to throw out any of these cards, to be honest. Yeah, I think I might. So I could throw out a card. and get Duke on board again, but then I would be throwing out more. Well, then if I fail by 2 or less, but then there's only 1 clue there, so that's a waste of that. So I might be inclined to wait. So instead, for my final action, do we draw a resource or do we draw another? I'm going to draw another card for our final action. And we get the laboratory assistant. We have so much investigation in here, which is fine. Okay, so we get the lab assistant. Yeah, so we're not bringing her out because we've got Pete there. Okay, so that's the end of that turn. That was a slightly frustrating turn in the sense that we didn't get the clue. We did kill the rats, and then we drew a card, so we've got so much intellect pips, we're drowning in them. Anyway, so that was a bit of a non-phase. The enemy phase, there are no enemies to speak of, so we can move directly into the upkeep phase. And there we are, perception. How many more intellect pips can we get? We are just drowning in them. Like, I can see now what we've got to do is we've got to get back to the hallway. We've got to evade. We've got to evade the ghoul priest, and then we've got to get Leader Chandler on board. I think that's what we're going to be doing. That's looking like the most likely thing, because at the moment we're just not getting any other weapons anyway, and so the baseball bat is good, but it could break, so we'll just have to see how we go with that. So let's move forward to the Mythos phase. There are now 3 on here, so we've got plenty of time there. Let's see what the encounter deck throws up for us. Obscuring fog. Oh my goodness. So that's exactly what we didn't want to get. Oh my goodness. Obscuring fog. Yes. So that gives it a 6. Shroud. That's okay though. We probably will be using. I just realised we've got working on a hunch here. We could have used working on a hunch last time. I think we'll be using working on a hunch this next time. Yes, because now we've drawn perception. We've still got plenty of intellect pips to use with Leader Chandler, so I feel more comfortable about using that, because now we've got obscuring fog there. That makes it really quite a difficult draw. So I think we just move ahead and just fast play and just get the clue and move on. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So I'm sure some of you have been screaming, yes, that deduction, working on a hunch, wherever you've got working on a hunch. Well, anyway, yes, I realise we've got working on a hunch, so we'll use that. I feel more comfortable now. I was avoiding using these before, because if I'm going to get Leader Chandler on board, I wanted to make sure I've got them. Now I've got perception as well. I feel more comfortable about chucking that in. So let's, yeah, so there we go. Obscuring fog in the cellar, always the worst. Alright, investigation phase, 3 actions. So first thing we're going to do is spend 2. And we're going to play working on a hunch. Fast play. During your turn, discover a clue at your location. So that's the final clue. There we go. Crowd goes wild. There's the second victory point. Brilliant. So we're all good from that perspective. So here we go. Now the question is, what do we do now? Well, obviously the first thing we do is spend an action and move back to the hallway. Now the question is, it's turn 6, so we've got lots of time. We're actually in a good place. So we have a couple of choices here to make. We can either try and hold out here for a few more turns and get more weapons, because at the moment we don't. Or what we do is we draw more cards or more resources, and look at getting Leader Chandler on board, because then we would be +1 attack and another +1 damage, which once you've got Leader Chandler, you're pretty right. So I'm thinking in this case that we have enough intellect pips to we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got enough intellect pips to almost assuredly parley her. So that's what I'm thinking that we do, because even though Ashcan could bash the Ghoul Priest with the baseball bat and with Duke, that's risky, given that we don't really have any weaponry backup at the moment. Yeah. So is resource a good idea? Well, the problem with this card is that you need 5. It's incredibly expensive. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be using it for that. So, however, if we want to use, well, no, survival instinct. No, so I don't. It doesn't feel like. I mean, the only thing is, yes, it would be good to have some extra resource for evasion. So I'm actually thinking the best thing to do is to add 2 extra resource. So we've got lots of ways of evading. So that's our 2 turns. And then I feel like we're in a good place to bring on the Ghoul Priest. Wow, and it's only turn 6. This is going well. So let's move forward to the enemy phase. There are no enemies, just obscuring fogs everywhere. It's a very foggy scenario this time. And then let's move into the upkeep phase, and we get the magnifying glass. I tell you, we like no weapons, but we have intellect just for days. Look at all these intellect cards. 1 weapon and a mass of intellect cards, just incredible. So there you go. That's the upkeep phase. We've got lots of resource now. So before we move into the Mythos phase, I am going to spend 3 clues. I think what we're going to do here is we are absolutely going to bring Lita Chandler on board. You know, there's no reason why we can't get her on board, parley with her, draw a card. Hopefully we'll draw into something with some fight pips for a change. But once we've got her on board, as long as we don't lose the baseball bat, and we've got Duke, yes, we'll lose Peter Silvestri in the process, but that's okay. I think it should be fairly straightforward to dispatch the Ghoul Priest. So let's do that. Let's spend 3. So there we go. That's the requisite number of clues to advance. We flip this. Using the barrel from the attic, you carry ice and snow from the cellar and hurl it at the barrier. The barrier sparks and shudders as it consumes the ice, then hisses and fades out of existence. The barrier blocking the passage into the parlour has vanished. Reveal the parlour. Set aside Lita Chandler into play in the parlour.
Hello, it's Lita here. Oh, I keep hearing you're going to come and speak to me about helping with that nasty Ghoul Priest.
There we go. We can flip. Do we flip the parlour now? It doesn't really matter because it's not an investigation thing. But basically we can resign from here and we can take control of Lita. So I think it might be worthwhile getting Lita, and then we can fight the Ghoul Priest in the parlour, and if things go pear-shaped, we lose the baseball bat, whatever, we can resign. So at least we get a respectable outcome. We get the Ghoul Priest, he arrives. Yes, he arrives. So he goes in the hallway. So we'll just read this now. A woman with a torch stands in your parlour, a glimmer of hatred in her eyes. What have you done to my barrier? She screams, furious before you can answer. A ghastly wail sounds behind you, and a creature wearing robes and a deer skull mask tears through the wall, advancing towards you. We've got to defeat the Ghoul Priest. Craig goes wild. Duke's banding around. Ghoul Priest is like, hello everybody, hello. Well, this is going to be quite a fight. Ooh. So there we go. That's the end of the round, but we've still got to get through a Mythos phase. So let's see what we get. We get Doom, so there's now 4 on there. Then let's see what the encounter deck has for us. The encounter deck has Ghoul Minion. Oh boy. Yes. There we go. A Ghoul Minion. There we go. So the ghouls did turn up, but they turned up together. So there we go. We've got 2 of them to deal with here. So let's move into the investigation phase. Let's put 3 actions on Pete. So this is what we need to do. This is why I'm glad we got the resources. So we need to use Survival Instinct during an evasion attempt, and actually the ghoul minion actually made that a lot easier, because if there was just the ghoul priest, that would be an evasion of 4. It's now just an evasion of 2, and we have an evasion of 4 because of Pete, so we've got +1. So we can, it says here, if this skill test is successful during an evasion attempt, the evading investigator may immediately disengage from each other enemy and move to a connecting location. Brilliant. We're absolutely going to do that. So the first thing that we do is we're going to evade this ghoul minion. So we'll bring that out. So that gives us we're a 3 plus Pete gives us 4. That gives us 5. 5 versus 2. Now I think I'm going to use the bait and switch because I don't want this to fail. So that gives us 6 versus 2. So the only way we're failing this is if we get an auto fail. What does the chaos bag give us? Chaos bag gives us -4. Wow. So let me just make sure we got that. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, we succeeded. So we succeeded in evading. Oops, put those there. We succeeded in evading, so we've evaded both of these. We disengage, automatically disengage from, let me just check, automatically disengage from each other enemy and move to a connecting location. Wow, what a card, what a card. So these guys are both evaded. Oh, where's he gone? And we automatically move into the parlor. First action. Brilliant. Okay, so that was our first action. Our second action is to get Leader Chandler on board, which will mean we'll be saying goodbye to Pete Sylvester, but he's done his job. So let's see here. To successfully parley, we need a 4 intellect. We have an intellect of 2, so we can put this in. That's 4. Then another 2. That's 6. 7. 8. I'm being really careful here. I don't. Yeah. So 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. So again, auto fail is the only way we can fail this parley, and we get a 0. Overkill, I know, but Ashcan wants to be absolutely sure that he gets this. We draw a card, we get another perception. Where are all the fight cards? Where are they all? Anyway, so that was our second action. We have Lita on board. We say goodbye to Pete. We have Lita on board, so that's brilliant now, because that gives us that gives us another +1 attack. So for example, if we're attacking with Duke, that gives us an attack of 5, and we do an extra damage, so we would do 3 points of damage. That's absolutely brilliant. We've got 1 turn left. The best thing to do is draw another card, and we get the rabbit's foot. We're a little bit late. It would have been good to have the rabbit's foot earlier in the game, but that's fine. So that's our 3 goes. We're in the parlor. I think we stay in the parlor. Well, do we stay in the parlor? I think we do, or do we take it up to the ghoul priest? Because, yeah, I'll have to. If we stay in the parlor, then the ghoul priest will have 3 turns. He'll then move and he'll do an attack of opportunity on us. Whereas I think if we move, we could move to the hallway, and we could evade all the enemies, and then we could wail into the ghoul priest a couple of times. So that might be the way to do it. I'm thinking that's a better outcome. Okay. So next action. That's all our actions. So we move into the enemy phase. The enemies are exhausted. Then we move into the... Now, actually, this said disengage. Did it say they're exhausted? Maybe I've got that wrong. Skill test successful during an... Oh, it was an evasion attempt. Immediately disengage from each other enemy engaged with you. It doesn't mean you automatically evade them. Yes. So, yes. I think that's right. I'm just going to stop here. I'm just going to go and just double check. I'm pretty sure I should have evaded the ghoul minion, but I didn't evade the ghoul priest. I just disengaged from the... In fact, I'm sure that's what it's saying. Let me just read it again. I'm sure all of you are screaming at me right now going, that's the way it is. If the skill test is successful, so I evaded the ghoul minion, then I disengage from each other engage and I move to a connecting location. So yes, I didn't evade, so I made a mistake there. So I was the ghoul minion was disengaged, but the ghoul priest wasn't. So in the enemy phase, investigation phase, in the enemy phase, the ghoul priest should have moved because he's a hunter, and he would have done 2/2. So yes, it was the ghoul minion who. So we've got to take 2 points of health and damage. That's okay. We can put 2 points of horror on Leader Chandler, and we can damage. Leader Chandler can take 1 point of damage, and we'll take 2 points of, and we'll put 2 points of damage on Lita, and a point of damage on Duke. Okay, so yes, so he did move and attacked us, even though we disengaged from him. But that's okay, because we're now where we want to be in the parlor, which means we've got some options here about what we do. So yeah, depending on what we get from the encounter deck. Sorry about that, I didn't read that right. It's not that you automatically evade everything, it's that you evade the ghoul minion, disengage from the ghoul priest, move to the parlor, and then of course the ghoul priest moves over and does an attack on us. So there we go. So that was them. I think we're at the end of the upkeep phase. So then we move into the Mythos phase. Now let's draw an encounter. It's getting very exciting now. Are we going to take down this ghoul priest? I think we are. We're taking damage, but I think we can do it. So let's see. The encounter deck has Crypt Chill. Yeah, that's fine. We're not going to use we could use Dig Deep, I guess, but if we have to lose something, it's definitely going to be Dig Deep. So I'm glad we've got that on the table. So here we go. It's a 4 willpower. We've got a 4 willpower. We're going to throw anything in on. Well, actually, we could boost our willpower to save Dig Deep, because otherwise we would use things like the Rabbit's Foot, or we could use this Cunning Distraction and automatically evade all the enemies at your location. So I've got a choice here. I can either just lose Dig Deep, but then yeah, so I could lose Dig Deep because I've got Cunning Distraction. So if I really wanted to, I could spend 5 and I could evade the Ghoul Priest automatically. So it's a question of what the priority is. I think that actually Cunning Distraction, but do I want to use Cunning Distraction for its pips rather than spending the 5 to automatically evade? Yeah. I want to keep Cunning Distraction because the cards, because we drew an emergency cache, which is not much help at the moment. So I think I'm just gonna go straight up 4 versus 4. Let's see how we go. Chaos Bag says -4, so yeah, it's a good job we didn't even try. So there we go. Lost the cunning distraction. Thank goodness it was there, because if we'd lost the baseball bat or Duke or Leader Chandler, that would have been seriously, seriously nasty. Okay. So that was a nasty draw. Okay, we've got 3 actions here. Now, we've got to think this through, because there's a couple of things we can do. We can literally just wail on the Ghoul Priest. So I'm just thinking if we did, because we've got each investigator at your location gets +1, so Duke doesn't get the +1 attack, because he's not an investigator. So we could attack with Duke, which would be 4 versus 4. And we could boost that up to, say, 6 versus 4. So that would do 2 points of damage. And then we could attack with the baseball bat. So the baseball bat would give us +2, so that would give us 4. Plus we would get 1 for Lita. That would give us 5. We're actually better off fighting with the baseball bat, I'm just realizing, because we do +1 damage, +2 damage. So essentially we can do 3 points of damage to the Ghoul Priest. The problem is, if we miss, then he gets an attack of opportunity on us. So I'm thinking I'm going to spend the 5. That's our first action, and I'm going to automatically evade all enemies at your location. So he's evaded, so he can't attack back, he can't retaliate. So that's the first thing. So then we've got 2 turns, two free turns. So let's see, let's go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to attack with the baseball bat. So we get +3, so that gives us 5 versus 4. Let's make that 6 versus 4. So that's 6 versus 4 with the baseball bat against the Ghoul Priest. And let's see what happens. Chaos Bag says -1, we did it. So he takes 1, 2, 3 points of damage. So he takes 3 points of damage. Ow! 1, 2, 3. So we've only got to do 2 more points of damage. So that was our second turn. So we've got another turn now. So we can attack again with the baseball bat. Now we've got no fight pips now. So it would be a 2, 4, 5 versus 4. So let's do 5 versus 4. If we get this, we have won. So let's go with 5 versus 4 for the game. If not, we'll be able to attack him again next turn, but let's say 5 versus 4 for the game, -1 or better. Let's take off the action, the baseball bat smacking the Ghoul Priest in the head, and we get -1 number of enemies at your location. Did we do it? Let's see. 2, 3, 4, and 1 more gives us 5. We also do 3 points of damage. That's another 3 points of damage on the Ghoul Priest. The baseball bat breaks. Oh my goodness, it's all happening. And the Ghoul Priest has died. Ah! Absolutely brilliant. Wow, what an ending. What an ending. To end with, like, hitting him, getting the cultist, and then hitting him again, getting the skull, which was on a 5. Was that right? Was that a 5? 2, 3, 4, 4. Yeah, 5 versus a 4. So the baseball bat was the hero here, and it literally broke in the last hits, shattering into pieces as the Ghoul Priest falls. All in turn 8, ladies and gentlemen. Ashcan Pete has now gone to the top of the table. He's got 4 victory points. He has done that in 8 turns, which no one has done. 9 turns was the best so far. So he is now the crowning winner of the Investigator Games. I've never seen him so excited. He's jumping up and down. He's waving his guitar. He's holding his guitar up, rock style, into the air. Duke is bounding around. They all took damage and horror. My goodness, there was damage and horror everywhere. So we really had to really kill this ghoul priest. We managed to do that. It was a significant win. There's fog everywhere. That was very dramatic. Absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching the Investigator Games, and thank you for all the likes and subscribes and comments. I really do appreciate them. I do have so much fun doing this. Next time it's Jim Culver's turn to do the gathering, everybody's favorite jazz musician. I do like playing Mystics, so I'm really looking forward to playing this with Jim. I'm sure he will also do well, although there's a new gold standard has been set. It's getting harder and harder for these investigators. I think when we go to the next phase, I think we're going to have to random draw, because it's probably harder for later investigators than earlier ones in some ways. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time.